Westfield Memorial Hospital provides high-quality health care to residents of Western New York, offering patients the most sophisticated medical advancements while keeping the ease and familiarity of a community hospital. Support for Chautauqua Sunrise has been provided by WRFA 107.9 FM, Jamestown's public radio station, streaming online 24/7 at WRFALP.com. Low power to the people. Chautauqua Sunrise is made possible by a grant from Fredonia Place, a continuing care retirement community providing dignity in a modern luxury environment. Meter's Restaurant, a family tradition for over 50 years in downtown Ripley, is a proud supporter of Chautauqua Sunrise. Meter's provides all-day dining, banquet services, and custom catering, specializing in pie. Funding for Chautauqua Sunrise is provided in part by the Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency, with offices in Jamestown, Dunkirk, and Westfield, helping businesses to prosper throughout Chautauqua County. From supporting people with disabilities to enjoy great lives, to providing health care services that are available to anyone, the Resource Center has been improving our county for more than 60 years. Learn more about how the Resource Center makes a positive difference in people's lives. From the Access Chautauqua Studios in Mayville, it's Chautauqua Sunrise. Chautauqua Sunrise is hosted by Doc Hamels and supported by the award-winning volunteers at Access Chautauqua. We are here to share local news, colorful interviews, and events of interest to everyone. Chautauqua Sunrise is broadcast live Saturday mornings each week from 9 to 10 a.m. Send events via email or call us live. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook. And now, from the Access Chautauqua Studios, it's Chautauqua Sunrise.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Doc Hamels, and welcome back to Chautauqua Sunrise. Woo! Well, the weather, it was just like somebody flipped a switch, wasn't it? We went from the 80s down to the 60s, and sleeping is much better once again. It's so strange. It was like September 1, look, we're almost into the fall mode here. Oh, well, that's how we are here. But boy, the weather's been really strange down south and along the East Coast. Our hearts go out to everybody down in Louisiana and New Jersey and New York and gosh, Pennsylvania. Who thought there'd be flooding in that whole area? And then all those fires out west, jeepers. Chautauqua County is very blessed for sure. Good afternoon to all my listeners on WRFA 107.9, low power of the people in Jamestown. Glad you could join us Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. Got a great show in store for you as always. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. We are streaming live, and folks in Europe and Asia, across the United States, thanks for joining us down in Florida, wherever you are. As I always say every week, that if you have an announcement, send it to us, and some of you have, and we'll be talking about those here in a little bit. You can email us at chautauquasunrise@gmail.com. You can call us at 716-753-5225. And Randy is anxiously waiting to wake up on the other side of the wall because he likes a nap, right? He naps. And if you could call and wake him up, we would appreciate it. And he will give us your information or put you online live right into the studio, and we'll chat with you. We get Mike from Portland, we get Jim Kurtz from Mayville, we get whomever for all walks of life here. Linda from Chautauqua, right? And so we are happy to hear from you. What could you call us for? Your club or event might have a fundraiser. You may have a particular program that you want to share, like a guest speaker somewhere. It might be a birthday, anniversary, whatever. Speaking of birthdays, I have to do this very carefully. I want to wish my wife, Barbara, a happy birthday. And I was thinking about that today. First of all, you never tell how old or the year, so we'll skip those two. But I will say it was this month, 40 years ago, that we met, and within a couple months we got married, so it was like love at first sight. So happy birthday, Barb. See how easy that was? And if you want to call in or send that in, we'll do the same. Tomorrow, I always like to brag this up. My band, the Growlers, will be at the Big Inlet. We're going to be playing around 2 o'clock till about 3, and we're opening for a group that you saw here on Chautauqua Sunrise. Osborne Nash will be playing from 3 o'clock on. So it should be a great day. The weather looks like the rain in the morning, and by mid-afternoon it's supposed to clear off. So fingers crossed, we're going to have a dry afternoon. For those of you that do follow the Big Inlet, do watch the Facebook, because they're going to let you know if there's a cancellation. All right, another announcement is September 18th, coming up in a couple of weeks. The Ripley Public Library is going to open its doors to the public for a grand reopening, and it's going to be from 4 to 7. They're going to have little hors d'oeuvre things. See how that works? And beverages and things like that, refreshments. So September 18th, the Ripley Public Library reopening. I'll be there because I'm on the board of directors there. And if you haven't had a chance to peek in there, it is absolutely gorgeous. You wouldn't know it was the same place. It was originally a Baptist church that was built in 1893, and the library's been there quite a few years now. And it's taken it from sort of with this older look to a very sleek, modern, clean look. And I think you're going to be very proud that you have this beautiful asset in your community. Speaking of community, I have a bunch of announcements that I want to share with you, so let's get right to it. Our friends at Infinity downtown Jamestown, calling all area teens. The Infinity Center wants to hear from you. Join Infinity's artistic director, Jamie Lee. She's been on our show, lots of fun, throughout September to share your ideas for music and art classes, workshops, and events at the Infinity Center in the upcoming year. They're calling it a think tank. You do not need to be an Infinity student to participate in their think tank sessions. Come and let us hear your voice so Infinity can help bring your ideas to life in our community. Find Infinity on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or visit Infinity Performing Arts, all one word, .org to see dates available and sign up for a think tank session today. And if you want to give them a holler, you can call them at 664-0991. They're down there on 2nd Street, and if you haven't been there, it's really cool. And we really love those guys because they work with the kids and young adults, and adults for that matter too, and keep the arts alive in Chautauqua County. In partner with a lot of other organizations for that matter. All right, speaking of the arts, the Reg Linné Center for the Arts is going to be featuring a medieval fantasy film called The Green Knight. I'm not familiar with this. Are you, Justin?
Never seen it.
Never seen it. Maybe this is your chance. An epic fantasy adventure based on the timeless Arthurian legend, The Green Knight, Wednesday, September 8th at 7 p.m. Tells the story of Sir Gawain and King Arthur's reckless and headstrong nephew who embarks on a daring quest to confront, the eponymous Green Knight, a gigantic emerald-skinned stranger and tester of men. I've never heard this story. Gawain contends with ghosts, giants, thieves, and schemers in what becomes a deeper journey to define his character and prove his worth in the eyes of his family and kingdom by facing the ultimate challenger. Wow. From visionary filmmaker David Lowery comes a fresh and bold spin on a classic tale from the Knights of the Round Table. The Green Knight is rated R and is 130 minutes long. Now, keep in mind that upcoming movies at the Reg include Matt Damon in the drama Stillwater, which is going to be shown on September 15th. M. Night Shyamalan's still laughing at that one. Thriller, Old, that's the name of it, on September 18th. Thank you, Jeff, for that. And Jennifer Hudson, that's easy to say, as Aretha Franklin in Respect on September 22nd. So some really good movies. How much does it cost? $7 plus $1 for theater restoration fee, so $8 total. They may be purchased from 12 to 5 p.m. Monday and Friday, and 12 to 8 p.m. Wednesday. You can give them a holler at 484-7070 and go online at regilene.com. Vaccinated patrons are not required to wear masks. Where is it located? 116 East 3rd Street in Jamestown. So, sounds like a nice evening out. Then they got this thing called the Regilene Block Party. This is new to me. The Regilene Center for the Arts will celebrate the end of summer with a block party in front of the theater. Look at that. And the Western New York premiere of a new documentary from director Peter Funt on September 11th. Mr. Candid Camera tells the story of the life and career of a comical genius, Alan Funt, and his legacy as the mastermind of the Candid Camera radio and TV shows. If you didn't watch it, we used to laugh when we were kids. It was really fun. The film includes clips from the long-running TV show, never before seen home movie footage, vintage commentaries by Muhammad Ali and Paul Newman, dramatic archival footage from Alan Funt's trip to the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War, and new interviews with comedians Carol Burnett and Howie Mandel. Director Peter Funt will present the film in person at 8 p.m. and follow the screening with a live Q&A with the audience. General admission to the film is $25 for adults and $10 for veterans and patrons aged 18 and under. Prior to the screening, the Reg will have the end of the summer block party on 3rd Street in front of the theater beginning at 5 p.m. There will be live music from Harmony Dillium, food from Foodies, Sweets and Eats, and Persnicketies? Is that new? Persnicketies pies? And refreshments from Regilene Center for the Arts. Southern Tier Brewing Company, Southern Tier Distilling. While there is no admission fee for the party, separate payment is required for food and beverage. Sounds like a tailgate party. During the block party, Art Cloth and Craft will open their doors for an art exhibition titled The Great Pollinators. Hence, we have pollinators on the screen. The artwork in this collection features beautiful specimens of bees, birds, and butterflies. That wasn't too hard to say. Including intricate ink drawn studies, watercolors filled with movement, and playful depictions of fuzzy bee bums. For information on all events and tickets to Mr. Candid Camera, call 484-7070 or visit the Regilene website, regilene.com. Okay? Moving along.
Don't tell them it's easy. They'll give you a hard time.
Oh, Justin wants to challenge me next week with something more difficult. Okay, those who are watching, send me a really hard thing to pronounce. I'll just change it anyways. Backpacks in school. The Chautauqua Center donates 1,400 backpacks to local schools in the Jamestown, Dunkirk area. Let's see. And then we have some pictures here. The staff from the Chautauqua Center recently met with representatives from public school districts throughout the county for their 8th annual school supply giveaway. A total of 1,400 backpacks filled with school supplies were given to Bemis Point, Bosse's, Brockton, Cassadaga, Chautauqua Lake, Clymer, Dunkirk, Faulkner, Forestville, Fredonia, Frewsburg, Jamestown, Panama, Pine Valley, Ripley, Sherman, Silver Creek, and Westfield. That's pretty awesome. Like last year, the center made the tough decision to cancel their Family Fun Day, where students come on site to receive their supplies due to safety concerns for the hundreds of attendees under the age of 12 who are not yet to be able to be vaccinated for COVID-19. Instead, the center distributed directly to schools where students in need will be given the supplies by school staff. Interested families can contact their school to request one of the backpacks. Okay, and this is a quote. This year, we were able to dramatically increase the number of supplies offered because of a generous donation from a single community member, explained Sarah Gilbert. And Sarah's been on the show. She's their marketing specialist. Richard Forsberg, who is a member of the Jamestown High School class of 65, reached out to us in the spring to ask how he could help. Currently residing in Colorado, Mr. Forsberg hasn't forgotten his Chautauqua County roots and was eager to give back to his hometown. He says, "I'm proud of Jamestown and Chautauqua County and want to help support families in need in the region where I grew up," said Mr. Forsberg. anything to do with education is where my passion is. So very, very cool on Mr. Forsberg and, of course, the Chautauqua Center. Okay, moving along. And this is the last one I have today. The Chautauqua Hometown Heroes Veterans Memorial Building dedication. Woo! We had a show on this about a year ago where they are honoring our hometown veterans. And they have a memorial in Mayville, near the Mayville Village Cemetery. And this is going to be held on October 5. Okay? What are your impressions, thoughts, and feelings regarding your Chautauqua Hometown Heroes Veterans Memorial Building? Are welcome to be placed in their commemorative booklet. Please send letters to P.O. Box 102, Mayville, New York, 14757. So, what they're requesting is if you have any ideas about the memorial and you want to make comment, they're going to accept them until September 21. And again, you would just send them to, as they put it, CHHVM, so that's Chautauqua Hometown Heroes Veterans Memorial, P.O. Box 102, Mayville, New York, 14757. Okay, as you can see how easy it was. You send in your news and announcements, and we do it right here, free of charge. We're going to take a little break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
I'll be seeing you.
No, the thing I've missed the most during this entire time, this pandemic, has been you.
I love playing to a live audience. There's nothing like it.
The COVID-19 vaccines are going to help us all get back to the moments we miss.
It's totally normal to have questions. I did too.
That's why it's so important to get informed.
So ask your doctor and get the facts. It's up to you.
I'm still pondering the word eponymous. We're going to have to figure out what that word means. Okay, like hippopotamus. Anyways, I learned so much here on the show. Folks, I'm really pleased that we're going to introduce our next guest this morning. And she's going to be talking with me about some things that maybe y'all haven't talked about in a long time. Things that are emerging in our society more and more, and that we're seeing on TV, commercials. And what I mean is, we're getting comfortable with what we're going to talk about here in just a second. How's that for an introduction?
It sounds good to me.
All right.
I like it.
Emily Van Way is from Prevention Works. She's a prevention educator, outreach specialist, and the LGBTQ liaison. You got a lot of titles.
Yes, I actually updated that this week.
Okay.
I received a promotion.
Oh, all right. Well, let me add.
So when you wrote down that note, yes, that was correct. As of right now, I am the Prevention Education Coordinator and the LGBTQ liaison. But thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Emily, I didn't say what we're going to talk about because I want you to talk about it correctly. Because I don't even want to pretend to get into this topic because you're the pro and I'm not. The reason why I invited you here was I get the regular newsletter from Prevention Works. We do a lot of announcements for them. And I saw you had your very clever Q-tips.
Yes.
And I was reading along there and I thought, wow, we need to talk about this. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about Emily Van Way.
So I am the LGBTQ liaison at Prevention Works, and this is one of my biggest passions, working at Prevention Works and just in my life in general. So I am an openly gay cisgender woman, and I grew up in Dunkirk, New York. That's where I was born and raised. I graduated from Dunkirk High School. Okay. And when I graduated from Dunkirk High School, I moved down south to North Carolina, where I attended East Carolina University.
What'd you study there?
I got my Bachelor's of Science in University Studies, which essentially means that I changed my majors maybe 3, possibly 4 different times. And yes.
I've never heard that you majored in or got a bachelor's degree in university studies. I didn't know there was such a one.
Yeah, so it's actually a really cool program at my university where, like, for students who, keep changing their major and, they want to graduate still on time, it allows you to take all of the classes that you have ever taken and create your own major.
Oh, all right, okay.
So
we had that in when I was in college, but
okay.
And I don't want to say it was independent study, but it was.
Yes.
But it's something like create your own path.
Yes, exactly. And I know for like some people that might sound like, oh, you're just kind of like brushing your way through college,
professional
you know?
student,
Yeah, but there was actually a lot of credentials. Like I had to go through a class where the class was entirely about creating my major, about, you know, because you had to have a certain amount of credits in different fields of, you know, your prerequisites and stuff.
Yeah,
and then they had to make sure that they called it your thematic core. So your main chunk of classes that essentially makes up your major, they had to make sure that those classes made sense, that you can pair them together.
Yeah.
So that way you're not just combining a bunch of random classes and saying, I'm done. You know, it has to make sense, and then you have to write an essay about it, about why you want to do, you know, what it is you're doing and how you're going to use that in the future. And then after you do that, it has to be approved by a board of professors.
That sounds harder than taking a normal.
Yes, because you have to prove yourself. You have to say, you know, this is what I'm doing and it means something and it's going to allow me to, you know.
Did you have to do projects and things like this?
It was, so my capstone course was my final.
Yeah, I understand capstone.
Okay, yeah, so my capstone course, you could either do an internship, like a 25-page paper, and then something else. So at the time, I had a job. I was paying for my own apartment. I was volunteering at the LGBTQ Center. So I was like, you know what? I am writing a research paper. It just fit me the best. So I researched, well, let's backtrack a little bit. My thematic core, when I created my major, it was mental health and wellness for sexual minorities. So I focused my education on the LGBTQ community. And so my 25-page research paper ended up being about how it's important to have GSAs, or gender and sexuality alliances, in the schools, for support for the students, for support for, you know, faculty and staff, and it also helps the whole environment of the school be more accepting of LGBTQ plus people.
Whew.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so in my opening comment, I said we're seeing the topic of the LGBTQ in commercials and in literature, newspapers, posters, and things like that. And I told you before the show, I sit there and I think, okay, this is new. This is refreshing, and it's new because it's who we are. And my parents, who, if they were still alive, would be way up in their 90s now, and it's just not this, but drugs, whatever. I mean, there's commercials now about personal hygiene products that my mother would just flip right out on, you know, and different things like that, and I think that they would struggle even with this interview today, you know.
Absolutely.
But then I know people my age. It's probably just like every other generation. We're open to various topics, and there's others in my generation that are much like our parents. You know, they're how they were raised. So this is something that I've been watching very carefully for the last, I would say, 40 years, anyways.
Yeah.
As it's been slowly emerging and becoming more comfortable, but. And that's one of the reasons why I had you here, Emily, is I want to be comfortable to talk about this as a TV host and a producer, and when I'm out and about, because I'm in various circles. And Jeff, put up my bottom third, would you? And the reason why I want to do this is because I'm a board of director member at the Northern Chautauqua Community Foundation. And I think I wrote to you that we had gone through a sensitivity training, and that they encouraged us to put our pronouns, and I'm going to kind of start the conversation out that way, I guess, and how we identify ourselves. Yeah. And I could say, you know, after my name, you know, old white guy with gray hair, or I could put rocker, or I could put a million things, but with the LGBTQ community and members of that group, it's difficult for people that are not accustomed to approach, discuss, help me here. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, no,
And by
I-
putting
yes.
pronouns, now let's put up Emily's, and we'll do the same thing in that this, if you were here today and we were talking about this, this helps me to know that I'm not saying, well, they or he or something else.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
And so I think this is helping to bridge a little bit, and I think that's the discussion that I'd like to have today is how we continue to bridge this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start off addressing the pronouns.
Okay,
so
let's go
the
there.
reason why. So you said this was brought up in a sensitivity training
Yeah,
that you
absolutely
had.
was, absolutely.
And they suggested that you put your pronouns in your email tagline or on your Zoom bio.
Mm-hmm.
Or any other place where you would have your name written. And why is this?
Yeah.
Why? Why do they keep suggesting this? And this is because, you know, when we're talking about pronouns, what pronouns are, they are words that we use for people in place of their name. So when someone's referring to me, you know, my name's Emily, you would say, you know, oh, Emily's coming in today, you know, for her interview.
Right.
She is going to be here talking to me about what she does. So when you're saying those words and when we're having conversations about that, when you're putting the pronoun she into a sentence when referring to me, essentially what you're doing, and you know, you might not be thinking about this while you're doing it, but you're essentially saying that when you think of me or when you're talking about me, you assume that I identify as a woman because of the pronouns that I use. Does that kind of make sense? Are you following?
Absolutely.
So for people who might be transgender, or for people who might be non-binary and may
All right, let's make a deal.
Pause.
I understand most of these terms.
Okay.
But let's make a deal.
Yes.
Since this is the first time we're approaching this on this show,
Yes.
let's define, just like eponymous. We got to go back and find all the words.
Yes, someone please.
Let's define all of our terms. Okay. So let's start with transgender.
Transgender. Okay, so when you're born, when a person is born, a doctor looks at you and says, you're either a boy or a girl. That is your sex assigned at birth, okay? Because
Okay.
the doctor's looking at you and they're assigning a sex to your body.
So it's
to your
the
person.
biology of the
Yes.
person, right?
Yes, because a majority of the time, you know, it's based off of what you look like as a baby when you're born.
Genitalia. and
Yes,
things-
your physical sex characteristics.
Right.
As you grow up and you have a better sense or a better idea of who you are as a person, and you know, maybe you've explored some different labels and some different gender identities. If you grow up and you realize, let's say for example, I'll use, you know, when someone's born and say the doctor says you're a male. When you grow up and you realize that, you know, I actually feel like a female. I feel as if my person, my identity, me as a person, I feel most comfortable as a female. So then you go about living your life, you know, maybe you dress more femininely, maybe you wear makeup, maybe, you know, you start hormone therapy or undergo surgeries. Maybe you do some of those things. Maybe you do all of them. Maybe you only do one or two that I just labeled. That person would be considered transgender.
And this is the T in LGBT.
Yes.
The transgender. All right. So, and some people might be watching right now. Well, they say, "Oh, that's just a fad." It's not a fad. This person truly feels that way.
Yes, and I want to go back to something you mentioned in the beginning when you first started talking. You said that this is new information and we're hearing about it more and more.
It's
and
not,
so
it's old information, but it's new to.
It may be new to you,
Right.
but it's not new to this world or this
Oh
culture.
my God! It's been around. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yes,
it's been around for thousands of years.
Yes,
but
yes.
it's new in the sense that we're bringing it to the to light.
And so that's what I want to really keep in mind when we're having these conversations, especially since, you know, you said this is the first time we're having this
Absolutely.
conversation on this platform.
Yep.
Is that, yes, this might be new information to you, but this has been around for so long, for years and years and years and centuries. Both sexuality, so both, you know, the attractions to other people, and gender. So like the transgender topic that I was just explaining, that has been around for years and years and years and years. You know, it's not a fad. It's not just something that's, you know, the next trending topic. It's been around.
And you know, this has been something that's been squashed for hundreds of thousands of years, along with disabilities, along with anybody that looks different, any cosmetic anomalies and things like that. We seem to want to hide things that we're not comfortable with, or our religion or our upbringing, whatever it is, we lock it away.
Right.
Am I right? And so,
Yeah.
and that's, I guess, where I was going with new, in the sense that we're seeing it in a new sense in the media, you know, in commercials and things like that.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. It's not a new topic.
Right.
It's being presented in a new way.
Yes, it's evolving now with social media, you know, and news outlets and, you know, Pride Month and all of these different platforms that, you know, allow us to learn more about the LGBTQ community. You know, people are recognizing that representation really does matter.
Right.
You know, especially representation in leadership, you know, positions. You know, it's huge. You know, so we are truly being inclusive and diverse, so we can get everyone involved.
Okay, I stopped you on terminology, so we got transgender out of the way. So what was the second one you mentioned?
The second one I mentioned was non-binary.
All right.
Okay.
Now, where's that in our
So that one's actually in the acronym LGBTQ+.
plus?
Yes, so that is why we add the plus to the end of the acronym LGBTQ. The plus recognizes that there's many more identities and letters, essentially, that represent identities that we're not including in this LGBTQ+ acronym. So non-binary. What this is saying, when someone identifies as non-binary, I'm going to break down the concept of gender before I get into it, okay?
Go for it.
So, you know, especially when we're talking about sex assigned at birth, gender is typically thought of as a binary system, meaning that it's strictly male or female.
Right.
Okay? So when we're thinking about gender identity on a spectrum, what we're talking about is on one end of the spectrum, we have male over here. On the other end of the spectrum, we have female over here. But in between these two identities, there's a range of gender identities in the middle, in between these two different identities. Meaning that, you know, some people might fall smack dab in the middle of this gender spectrum. Meaning that they may feel a little bit like a male and a little bit like a female. They might feel both. Maybe someone leans more towards the masculine or the male end, but not quite all the way there. For people who identify as non-binary, they kind of view this spectrum of male, female, and everything in between, and they say, you know what, I want to take a step back and I don't want to associate with that whatsoever. You know, they don't exclusively identify as male,
Okay.
and they don't exclusively identify as female.
So what pronouns would they use?
Great question. So a lot of times people who identify as non-binary will use they, them pronouns, which this can be a topic where some people can kind of struggle with.
Because it's a plural.
Yes, exactly. Yes, when we think of they, them pronouns, we think of plural, we think of multiple people. But in the Oxford Dictionary, they actually changed the grammar laws so that they, them can be used in a singular form.
And I guess we do that, you know.
Yeah, like if you think about it, this is the best example that I've heard in the past. If you're driving and someone cuts you off.
They did it.
Yeah, they just cut me off, you jerk.
They don't
you know?
say he or she did it.
Yeah, you say they, and in that sentence, you're using they in a singular form.
It's like you. You could be singular or plural, right?
Exactly, yes. So we do it all the time without thinking about it. But it's one of those things that when someone has, like, in their bio, they, them pronouns, it's like we almost trip ourselves up because we're thinking about it too much, you know?
Yeah.
So it does take practice to replace, say, for example, I used myself as example, you know, Emily, she's coming in today. She's going to be doing this interview with me. If I used they, them pronouns, you would just replace that she with they.
Yeah.
So, Emily, they are coming in today. They're going to speak about their services.
Yeah, I think we do that.
Yeah, we do, and we just don't, you know, recognize it. So it takes practice. It takes practice to use these, you know, pronouns. And what I like to tell people, especially people who have loved ones who use they, them pronouns, is literally practice in the mirror. Like, stand in your bathroom, look in the mirror, and pretend like you're talking to that person, and kind of role play a little bit so you get used to using those pronouns.
So the question came up, is that the possessive form of the pronoun they, them?
Oh my gosh.
Theirs would be.
I am so not a grammar person. I'm so sorry.
Question came up in my ear. I didn't pose that one. So
you know what? Let me get back.
There would be the possessive, but to be like his or hers.
Yeah, it follows the same rules as she, her, and hers, or he, him, and his. They, them, and theirs follows the same rules.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
All right. Transgender, non-binary is the plus now. And as you say, there's a variety. All right. So we got to keep in mind here, we're not just talking about LGBTQ, we're talking about mental health. Mm-hmm. So for these folks, where does Prevention Works come in? I mean, what's the piece here?
That's a really, really good point. So Prevention Works' mission is to build a safe and healthy environment by effectively educating the community on positive life choices. Mm-hmm. So my role as the LGBTQ liaison is statistically across the U.S., we see that people who identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community, they are at an increased risk for substance use disorders compared to their cisgender heterosexual peers.
What was the first thing you said?
Cisgender. So like CIS.
Yeah.
And then gender.
What does that mean?
So remember how I was explaining transgender, how your sex assigned at birth is different from your gender identity?
Right.
So when you're cisgender, your sex assigned at birth, I'll use myself as an example because I am cisgender. When the doctor looked at me, the doctor said, "You're a woman."
Okay.
As I grew up, my gender identity, I still identify as a woman. So they align, they match. So therefore, I am cisgender.
Like in sync, cisgender. All right. Woo, okay, I've never heard that term.
There we go.
Remember I said new?
Yes.
This is new.
Lots of new information.
Right.
Lots and lots of new information.
All right. So the substance abuse is so for this population, and I don't want to say population, I don't know what to call it, but
community.
This community is a higher risk of substance abuse?
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
Yes.
Why?
Well, it's because...
Does it stress?
Yes, increased level of stress. If someone does not have a supportive system in their home or their school life, they may not feel comfortable coming out. And in that case, they may not be able to express themselves the way that they want to express themselves, whether that's wearing clothes that they want to wear, whether it's their hair or their makeup, or if it's participating in certain activities like football or rugby or dance and theater and music. Society likes to put a gender on those activities, and so depending on someone's home life, they may not be able to express themselves, and it can lead to feelings of isolation.
Sure.
So if you think about, if there is ever a point in someone's life where you feel so isolated, where no one gets you, you have no peers or no adults who really get you, truly get you as a person, that can more times, often than not, cause a person to turn to unhealthy coping techniques, such as...
And we see a lot of suicide, right?
Yes, and an increased level of suicide. So actually, suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth under the age of 24, I believe. Wow. So yes, and for the LGBTQ population, they're more than twice as likely to have suicidal ideations. So it's a lot. And so the reason why I'm bringing this education to Prevention Works to Chautauqua County, especially because we're a rural county, we have a lot of LGBTQ plus youth and people in general, adults as well, who feel isolated, who feel hopeless, who feel like people don't understand them and they don't get them. And so I'm here for that support and to provide, protective factors for these people to reduce those statistics, especially here in Chautauqua County.
So what do you do? What do you do to help?
Yeah, so I implement safe zone trainings throughout the schools, in K through 12 schools throughout Chautauqua County. So we focus on LGBTQ vocab. So a lot of these words that we have been explaining, I'll take the time to explain it with teachers and faculty and staff. We go over the difference between gender and sexuality. I also incorporate thoughts on intersectionality and the importance of recognizing intersectionality. And then the second half of the training focuses on how we can create safe classrooms and apply this knowledge to create safe spaces for the students.
All right. You used a term I'm not sure. Intersectionality?
Intersectionality, yes.
I don't know what that means.
You kind of explained it earlier and you didn't recognize it.
Okay.
So
I like that sometimes.
So intersectionality, it's, I'll give myself as an example. I am a gay cisgender woman, and meaning that
I already got the cisgender.
Yes.
I got it. You're born that way, you identify that way.
Yes.
See, I got it.
Yeah, we're learning. I like it.
Okay.
So gay meaning that I am attracted to other people who identify as women.
Okay.
And I'm also white. So my experience as a white, gay, cisgender woman is going to be extremely different from, say, a gay, cisgender woman who is from the Dominican Republic and has a disability.
Okay.
And so that would be intersectionality.
So you're kind of...
So their sexuality,
Gotcha.
their, their nationality or their culture, and also the fact that they would have a disability. It's different factors that are, coming together for this person that creates a unique experience.
Gotcha.
And so it's important when we are defining these words about the LGBTQ community to recognize the intersectionality that, could affect someone's life and their experiences. Because just because I'm defining a word and telling you what it means, it could mean something a little bit different to another person in the community depending on what they've gone through, what their background is, how they were raised, what different intersecting identities they have within themselves.
So intersectionality could also be used like various religions or
Yes.
various cultures and
Yes.
nationalities. In this case, it's the combination of descriptors and things like that.
Absolutely. It's not used strictly for the LGBTQ community. Actually, Kimberly.
See how it works?
Yes. Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term, and she is an African American woman.
Okay.
So she really coined this term for African American people, but not strictly for that group because she recognizes that it goes for all groups of people.
Right. And let me add to what I was saying. I was saying that we're seeing more commercials that have LGBTQ type actors or people portraying folks. And then we also see like mixed marriages, interracial marriages and things like this.
Yeah.
And lots more folks with disabilities.
Yes.
So I don't want to limit it just to this topic,
Correct.
but we're seeing a better representation of our community in the media.
Absolutely, and it's thanks to like organizations like GLAAD, like GLAAD. I don't know if you've ever heard of that organization, but basically what they do is they want accurate, positive representation in the media. So making sure that queer folk have a positive platform on the media, also people of color with disabilities, exactly everything that you just explained, this organization tries to incorporate in the media.
Okay, now, I don't even know where we were going because we've been bouncing around.
I know,
So
we went
let
on a
me
tangent.
let me bring the discussion to this point. I try to always get a little background on my guests, so I think I looked you up and you did a little piece out of Buffalo, maybe?
Yeah, it was Spectrum News Buffalo.
Okay, Spectrum News, and we're on Spectrum right now. And you use a term that me growing up, we would get slapped across the face if we called my brother this, or we called the kid down the street, or my parents, anybody, and the word was queer.
Yes.
All right. Now, in your discussion that I watched, and I get it, I understand where you're going with this, you used the word queer in a whole different way and encouraging people to use it. So, I'll be quiet. Why don't you explain that? Because I think that fits this discussion.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. So you just kind of gave like the background info. Queer, for some people was used as a discriminatory word.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of a history lesson in order to explain this, because in 1969, the Stonewall riots occurred. And so what the Stonewall riots were is, You know, it was a bar in New York City where a lot of queer folk gathered. You know, a lot of cops, you know, back then, sodomy laws were legal, meaning that you could be arrested if someone thought that you were engaging in homosexual behavior. That's the terminology that they used back in 1969.
Right.
And so this bar was targeted a lot by the cops. And finally, the people who went there regularly got sick of it and they said, you know what, no more. And they fought back. And so this riot was really the start and what really caused the LGBTQ rights movement to amplify. After this event, because of the news coverage and how much publicity it got, all over the US, we saw different organizations popping up to fight for LGBTQ rights. And what happened during this moment is, you know, a lot of times, you know, that word queer was thrown out to use against these people. And so at the same time as this LGBTQ rights movement was really amplifying across the US, more and more people started taking this word queer and using it as a way to, you know, say, you can't use this word against me. You know what?
Okay.
Like,
you're taking away the energy and the negativity.
yes,
of
like
it.
I am going to take this word, I'm claiming it for myself, and I'm going to use it, and I'm not going to let you say that that's a bad thing.
So if I say, Emily, you're queer, you say thank you, or yeah, you're right. Or,
Well, yes, and what I say, like, if you are going to use that word, I just say take a second to ask yourself, why are you using it, and who are you talking to?
Right.
Because even though, so I said, you know, I'm a gay cisgender woman, I also identify as queer, so sometimes I will say, like, yes, I am queer. And when I'm using that word, I ask myself, like, who am I talking to? Is this person?
yeah, why would you even say that? Yeah.
You know, it's going to take a while for people to catch on to this movement where we're using queer in a positive light. So still today, especially in Chautauqua County, there are a lot of people who don't feel comfortable using it.
So going back to my comment, this is new?
Yes.
All right,
it's
thank you.
new.
I was
It
right at
is
that
new.
point.
Yes, we're
All right,
still
so this
evolving.
is still kind of new. All right, so, you know, you talked about Oxford Dictionary. Queer is two different definitions for the most
Right.
part: odd or strange, or in a derogatory comment, someone that's homosexual.
Right.
All right. So now we're saying no. It doesn't necessarily mean those, but it also
Right.
could be. And I think you had a chart where you had an umbrella, and
Yes.
queer was the overriding
Yes.
category or term,
Umbrella term.
to include all of these letters that we've been slowly defining.
Yeah.
So where does homosexual come in? Where does that term come in?
So that's kind of like a term that we're kind of getting away from a little bit, you know, because it's a very broad term, and a lot of times, especially when we're talking about like the medical fields, especially back in, you know, like the 50s and 60s, there's a lot of negative medical connotation associated with the word homosexuality.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people more often than not, especially today, would rather identify with one of the more distinct labels such as lesbian or gay or bisexual or pansexual or queer. I said that word
Okay.
and I knew you were going to take a note.
Well, yeah, I think I know what it means, but we'll get to it. But it's
yeah.
not one of the letters.
It's not,
So
which
it's
is
under the
another
umbrella.
reason
It's
why.
another
yes.
plus. All right.
So that's another reason why we do include the word queer, because when we talk about things like lesbian, gay, bisexual, those are talking about sexualities, your attractions to other people, who you're emotionally and physically
Right.
attracted to people. The T is a gender, because it's how you feel about yourself, you know, your gender identity.
I gotcha.
It has nothing to do with who you're attracted to.
All right. So, all right, I get it.
But the word queer goes for both sexualities and genders, so you can use it for either or.
All right. So, if I go to California, will they be using the term queer the same as you do here?
I would say California for the most part.
I just picked that because it's the opposite side of the country.
Well, yeah, and we know that California generally is a little bit more progressive.
All right. And if I go to Michigan, go there. I have no idea
You
what
know,
they feel like.
that is like a really hard question to ask. I can't give you a black or white answer for that.
All right. So where's queer coming from as far as this umbrella concept?
Yeah, it's just a way to recognize that some people do identify
But
as
is
queer.
it? But is it regional? Is it across the country? Is
I
it
would say it is.
international? You go to Europe, would they be using the same terms?
Yeah, you know what? Like, I would think that it is pretty universal.
Okay.
I mean, I can't really say across the world because different languages and stuff, they might have different words.
Oh, yeah,
You
but I'm
know,
talking
of
about
course.
conceptually.
Yeah.
Is it more the umbrella kind of
Yes,
thing?
and again, like I go back to, you know, the older generation is usually the generation
Careful.
that has I didn't say an age. I didn't specify.
You could
But
be my granddaughter now. Be
generally,
careful here.
You know, the older generation is the generation that, you know, might not always be okay with the word.
Absolutely
And
correct.
that's why I go back to asking yourself, do you know this person? And like, why are you saying this word? Is it relevant? Like, can you go about this conversation without saying the word if you had to? Or is it really important? You know, like, ask yourself those questions before saying it. And another tip that I like to use is to mirror the language of other people that you're talking to. So, for example, like, I'm a very open person. This is the first time we've met, but I've been saying this word queer a lot, you know? And in this context, you know, just by getting to know me in this past hour that we've been meeting, you know, I would say, would you feel comfortable saying the word queer to me?
Queer.
There we go.
Yeah,
Then,
I mean,
you know,
yeah.
there you go. So
because now we have an understanding of what we're
Yes.
saying here, and that I'm not being hurtful to you or insulting you.
correct. So you want to make sure that you have that mutual understanding before you go around throwing that word around. And that's for anyone. That's for me. That's for me too as the LGBTQ liaison, you know? I have to do that too.
All right, one more definition. Pansexual.
Pansexual.
Pan means across the board.
Yes.
To me.
Yeah, the prefix pan.
Right.
So that's exactly what it is. So we talked about this gender binary, male over here, female over here. Pansexual recognizes that there is a whole spectrum of identities, of gender identities, that they could possibly be attracted to. So
That's different than non-binary.
yeah, so pansexual is just, this is an attraction. This is a sexuality.
attraction.
Because they're attracted to people regardless of their gender.
Gotcha. All
So
right.
they're attracted to everyone, basically.
Again, again, what we're talking about is how do you identify and those that you're attracted to. That's the differences in all these letters.
Yeah.
Woo! This has been really
Here's a little
eye-opening.
fun saying. I think this might help you.
right,
This
here we
helped me
go.
learning. So gender identity, that's the person I go to bed as. Sexual orientation is the person I go to bed with.
okay.
Does that help
I
clarify it
understand.
a little bit?
Yeah. For you personally, when did you realize you were queer?
I feel like I recognized my feelings or like attractions towards other women from a very young age. Like when I was the age of like 4 or 5, I feel like I had crushes on people like on TV, like any other kid would. You know, my crushes just happened to be women. But I didn't, you know, come out and feel comfortable like saying, you know, I am gay, I am queer until I was actually in college. So yes, it took me quite a while to build up the confidence to come out myself.
Is it getting easier for folks to come out?
For some,
Yeah.
for some, because like for some of the clients that I see, I meet with clients one-on-one to help them through this coming out process, to educate them on LGBTQ topics and to help build those coping skills. And, you know, I've seen clients as young as 10 years old. You know, a majority of my clients are between the ages of, I would say, like 11 and 15. So they're pretty young. I mean, a lot younger than I was when I came out. That's
Okay.
for sure.
You say clients. So let's put this now into the clinical setting of prevention work. So people are watching right now, they say, my son or daughter could very well be identifying in one of these titles. And we think they're stressing at school, they're not associating with their friends because they're whatever. I'm trying to be broad here and vague because I don't want to pinpoint any particular situation, but if they feel that their son, daughter, neighbor, nephew, whatever, needs not help, but some
extra
guidance,
support,
support, what do they do with you? I mean, how do they
Yeah.
get hold of you and all that?
So we have a referral form. So we have an online version that's right on Prevention Works website. It's www.preventionworks.us. You go to the website, click on contact, and then there'll be a link for a referral form. So if you are, you know, a parent, a caregiver, a school counselor, anyone who's concerned over like a kid needing extra support, you can fill out that referral form. and we will contact you with the next steps for setting up services.
All right, so can the young teenager self-refer?
Yes.
Do they
Yeah.
need parental permission to work with you
So
guys?
we follow the same HIPAA laws as any other like doctor's office or anyone would follow. So basically what the law says, if you are 11 years old or younger, you have to have the parent consent.
Wow.
If you are 12 years or older, you do not need parent consent. You can sign off for yourself.
I said wow because I was surprised it was so young.
It is, yes. I mean, but New York State, wants kids to have the rights to access the services they need, So,
Okay.
yeah, we abide by those laws. And
Right.
confidentiality, all of that applies. So what happens in our sessions stays in our sessions. I'm legally obligated, of course, unless they report. I'm a mandated reporter, so if someone says I'm going to hurt myself or hurt someone else or
I am-
someone else is hurting me,
I am too.
yes, like we have to report that.
Okay, so where am I going with this? People watching right now may have lived their lives due to social pressure as a particular gender
Or sexuality.
or sexuality, and now are coming to terms with their gender or sexuality. And they're maybe listening and watching right now going like, oh my God, I just can't do this. What would be some way to encourage them to come see you?
Yeah.
And you know where I'm going with this? Because I've run into people over the years that have been frustrated because they did not allow themselves to be true to themselves.
Yeah.
They lived a lie.
Yeah.
So do you see that?
Yeah, well, yeah, so, I mean, the majority of the people that I work with are young, but I do also work with parents and caregivers too. And I would just say, to answer your question, that if you are watching this and you might be struggling to come out, or you just need some extra coping skills, send that text message, you can, or that email, excuse me, to reach out and just ask some questions. If that's all you want to do at the moment, if that's all you feel comfortable with doing is just maybe reaching out, sending an email, making a phone call, even a Zoom call, even if you want to meet over Zoom, have your camera off if that makes you feel most comfortable. We are extremely flexible at Prevention Works, and I try to make it as casual and as comfortable as possible. So
What's a phone number they could call?
So it's 716-664-3608.
All right. And so if they're watching and they call this number, what do they say? I want to talk to Emily?
Yeah,
Do I want
the
to talk
LGBTQ liaison. I would like to, maybe set up some services, and we'll take down your email, and that way we can email you our referral form so you're able to complete it, and we can be in contact with you.
Emily, we're getting down to about a minute and a half left of the show. This has been very eye-opening for me, not in the sense of the topic, but the complexities and the terminology. So I'm feeling like you learned me here. You've educated me here. What would you like to tell the folks right now at this point?
If you do need help, if you do need the extra support, don't be afraid to reach out. We are here for you. I am not the only LGBTQ resource in Chautauqua County. There are other people that are feeling the same way as you. And, don't be afraid to be yourself. Live your life authentically, and don't be afraid to learn new concepts. There's always more to learn. There's always room to grow. So I encourage you to always just do your best and reach out if you need any help doing so.
Okay, thank you. Still got a little bit of time left. So what would be the number one struggle for folks right now
Do you mean?
that you work with? Is it drugs? Is it suicide? Is it
When
people picking on them or
Yeah,
beating on
so
them?
specifically LGBTQ services, a majority of the people I work with are trans. They're very young and they identify as transgender. And, just being able to express themselves the way they want to, being comfortable in their own skin, even though it might not match, the exact way that they want to live. And, having that support system, just someone who really understands them and giving them a space where they're able to just be themselves 100%.
Okay, and I could see what that would be a real issue, especially if they're in school and
Right. Depending on what school too.
What school and
Yes.
the circle they're in. Emily Way has been my guest today, and she is, let me get the right terminology here, you are now the prevention education coordinator and with an LGBTQ plus liaison. Do you use plus?
We do not for my
Forget the
title.
plus, throw it out. LGBTQ liaison. Emily, this has been wonderful. Thanks so
Thank
much for
you.
joining us today. Folks, I hope you learned, like I did, more and more about this community, and that we become more accepting of everyone in our community, regardless of their gender or sexual preferences. Folks, enjoy Labor Day weekend. Be safe, drink carefully and respectfully of others, and just be kind. All right? We'll see you next week, and I'm Doc Hamels. Take care. Bye-bye.